We had arrived in Jerusalem for Passover a few days early. Now, I always looked forward to seeing my extended family and for the various religious practices. While we cared about our faith and practice throughout the year, I felt a special connection to Yahweh in his story during these feast days, and especially Passover. I've always loved how it centered us on the story of how God had rescued our ancestors from slavery in Egypt, and holding on to that memory that God sees us and God hears us. Sometimes I gotta wonder if he still does. Now, the prophets tell of a coming Messiah, one who would rescue us once again, all of Israel, one who would free us, who would lead us back to favor with God and prosperity among men. Well, maybe one day. Again, while I hold this, it often seems like it's more of a distant story than something real to look forward to. It's this tension in me. But if the ancient stories tell us anything, it's that God moves in his own time, not our timing. And so I continue to practice, I continue to show up, and I continue to hold on hope that maybe one day, wait, what's that? There's a sound of shouting coming from outside the city. I must go and see what this is all about. Now I joined a flow of people heading out of the city in the direction of the joyous proclamations. And as I peered up the road, I could make out a form in the midst of the crowd, one who was the center of all the attention. And he was riding. Could that be a donkey? Riding on a donkey. This sparked something in my memory. Yes, from the prophet Zechariah. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. But wait, wasn't Zechariah speaking of the coming Messiah? Could it be? I had joined a caravan of people heading towards Jerusalem. Family, friends, and others of vague recollection. We were all making pilgrimage to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. You know all about it. There was an energy to the crowd this day, unlike anything I had felt since the excitement I knew as a child. There was talk swirling around as we walked that the prophet from Galilee, Jesus himself, was walking with our caravan. Oh, maybe I'll get a chance to meet him. Now we all slowed and came to rest at Bethphage before we planned to make that final trek down into Jerusalem. I found some shade and sat sipping some water. I closed my eyes and rested there. Now, I reveled in those moments. The sounds of people talking excitedly, animals baying and neighing all around me, smells of sweat, dirt, and dung were all a part of pilgrimage. Now, as I was resting, I heard the urgent conversation begin to emerge, and it was about the prophet. 2 of his disciples had arrived with a donkey and her colt. I opened my eyes and I got my weary bones moving. I creaked and stretched, and I needed to check this out. I moved through the momentarily busy streets made so by our resting caravan, and I found the crowd of people. And I made my way to the middle of it. There was the prophet. Yes, and there was the donkey and the colt. They were right. 2 of his disciples had taken off their outer garments and had put them on the backs of the beasts. Wait, the prophet was being helped onto the back of the colt? Well, that didn't make much sense. This colt, though never been ridden before, did not buck or object to his weight. Now, isn't that surprising? An energy of realization began to move through the crowd around me. Could it be? Is it he, the Messiah? The response was explosive. Some near the back of the crowd ran and began cutting down tree branches. Others began to take off their own outer garments and lay them in the pathway of the donkeys. Jesus and his disciples slowly set off in the direction of Jerusalem. They were the center of everyone's attention now. Now people moved out in front of the procession. They were crowding in on either side of the street, waving their freshly cut palm branches, laying down their coats along the pathway. It was all reminiscent of the scene that I've been told about since I was a child, 200 years ago when Judas Maccabeus arrived in Jerusalem after conquering the enemies of God. It was all so large. A cry came from somewhere in the crowd, "Hosanna, save us!" And others took up the cry, "Hosanna, Hosanna!" Someone called out, "Blessed be the name of he who comes in the name of the Lord." Messiah, Son of David, the long-awaited one, come to overthrow the rulers, come to free the captives. With every cell of my being tingling with excitement, I could not be silent any longer, and I picked up the cry, "Hosanna in highest heavens!" Now, as a shop owner, I eked out a meager living for my family. We never had too much, but we always managed to get by. But friends, I always enjoyed the Jewish feast days. That's when the population of Jerusalem swelled with pilgrims who made their way in. And, well, I didn't care all that much for the religious fervor that picked up at this time. I certainly appreciated the extra coins that wound up in our family's pockets. You know, it's always enough for our family to get by. We get a few special treats, and it sustains us into the days and weeks ahead. I offer thanks for the feast days. Now, it was a particularly sunny day, and I was enjoying the hustle and the bustle. Our goods were selling swiftly, and I hoped we could sell out in time for me to get home to my family, eat dinner that my wife has lovingly prepared, play with my kids even a little. Then it happened. Like a wave in the sea, news spread throughout the crowds, bustling through the marketplace. And in unison, people began to leave the market. I called out to one who was looking at my wares. He dropped it and left, and I said, "Sir, wait, come back." There goes a sale. Where were they going? Now, I couldn't leave my shop, but boy, was I curious. I could hear the shouting, and I could make out excited chatter. The city had ignited with enthusiasm. Something was stirring. As a child ran to catch up to the crowd, I stopped her and I asked, "Do you know what's going on? What's happening?" The child looked at me and she said, "It's Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." And then she turned and ran off. Well, whatever it meant, it seemed to be pretty big. There was something going on. Perhaps even history in the making.